Hi and welcome to this digital series about investment in Sweden. My name is Monica Enquist and I'm head of the Business and Trade Department here at the Embassy of Sweden in Germany. And a warm welcome to our studio here in Fälleshus, a joint building that we share together with our Nordic colleagues. And we have opened up again, so please come and visit us and see our exhibitions. This is our third program in this series that we're organizing together with Business Sweden and the German-Swedish Chamber of Commerce. We try to highlight possibilities to business collaborations or investment projects in Sweden. And we also want to focus on different regions, and this time we're going to go a little bit towards the west. We're going to focus on Västra Götaland and the business sectors mobility and logistics. Västra Götaland offers a strong ecosystem for mobility, and the offer has also been bigger regarding test beds, as examples are AstaZero and SEEL. Västra Götaland, due to its strategic geographical position in the Nordics, and also because its strong infrastructure, the robust infrastructure, it is also a focal point for logistics. Today you will hear from a German company already today based in Göteborg. A warm welcome to Philip von Stauffenberg, Operation Manager at Nextbike. You will also hear from experts from the region, Joel Görsch, Investment Advisor at Business Region Göteborg, and Jonas Widerström, International Business Coordinator, and today representing Business Region Borås. And we will also hear from Ninni Löfgren-Tischer at the German-Swedish Chamber of Commerce. She is Head of Market Services. And you will hear from Anna Lidberg, the Country Manager for Germany at Business Sweden. We will chat for around 40 minutes, and after that I will open up the floor to you. So I hope you will use the possibility to ask your question to the participants. You can do that by using the Q&A function below. You don't have to write a presentation, I will only read the question. So, we are going to start by focusing on Sweden's second largest city, Göteborg. A city that just had its 400 years birthday the other day. And a city that is famous for its wonderful shrimp sandwiches. But it's also famous for companies like Volvo, Geely, AB Volvo, Einride, Stena Line, Nudie Jeans, etc., etc. And to set the scene, I would like to start you off by this 1 minute long movie.
Why do people invest in Gothenburg? Maybe because we're an innovation leader. Or because Gothenburg is a hub for advanced research with more than 60 active testbeds. We have not just one, but 3 science parks, where companies, society, and academia collaborate to find the solutions of tomorrow. Like this place. Here they're developing something.
It's emission-free electricity and heat using hydrogen-powered fuel cell technology.
Sounds complicated.
Not if you know what you're doing.
I'll take your word for it. Another reason could be our business environment, a mix of global brands and pioneering startups. In other words, this region is packed with highly skilled people. The fact is, more and more people are moving here. It's easy to see why. Beautiful nature combined with a buzzing city life. And if you ask The Guardian, the coolest neighborhood in Europe is...
right here, actually.
Nice. No wonder people want to move here. And that's why we're building like crazy. 100 billion euros will be invested in the next few years. We are building flats, offices, hotels, tunnels, underground train lines, and infrastructure for electric vehicles. Oh, and we're also building a brand new bridge.
It is one of the most technically advanced bridges in the world.
Really?
And we are doing it in the most sustainable way.
Like we always do. So what is the reason people invest in Gothenburg? The truth is, there isn't one. There are many.
Wow. Let me now welcome Joel Gersh. You're working as investment advisor and you know the region of Göteborg very well. Could we start there? Could you tell us a little bit about the business vibe of Göteborg?
Thank you. Yes, we can most definitely do that. And I want to first of all thank the embassy for making this happen and allowing me to participate and to explain and tell a little bit about the Gothenburg region. So the business environment in Gothenburg in the mobility sector has always been strong since 1927 when the Volvo company was formed. It is a vibrant city with both the automotive industry, but also a very strong ICT industry with Ericsson and companies surrounding the Ericsson environment. And as the movie was shortly said, we have three science parks, and the biggest one is Lindholmen Science Park, which is based on pretty central, but on the Hisingen Island. And it is actually an old wharf area, which has now developed into a tech area for mobility, for tech industry connected to the mobility area.
Last edition of this series, we had a chat with the Swedish Minister for Foreign Trade, Anna Hallberg, and she talked a lot about testing facilities and how important it is for an important pillar of the Swedish innovation system. And I know that in your region you have a couple of those. Could you tell us a little bit about the latest testing facilities?
Yeah, we have a great many of them, actually 80, not all in mobility, of course, a lot of sectors. RISE is a very important player, also the University of Chalmers, Technical University, of course. And we actually have two really fascinating new centers, so test centers, one of them being SEEL, the battery test center, where will be one of the few in Europe that is developing tests for the electrifying industry, the electrification of the vehicle industry. So that is a really good place for testing the new technologies. But also we have a new zone project, where Green City Zone, Gothenburg Green City Zone, which is focusing on having free zones in Gothenburg area where in 2030 there will be no transport that has CO2 emissions locally. And the zones are shared in three different zones, one for workplace, which will be the Lindholmen Science Park area. We will have one which is a central area, a visiting area, which will be really in the center where we have the amusement park and where we have all the arenas and sports arenas and also the fair. And then finally, we will have also a new built residential area where also this will be included. So this is a very exciting project that we are doing together with Volvo Cars and also RISE Institute and then a lot of other partners. And this is a very good place for testing new technologies. There will be a lot of new developments. And this is an umbrella project where we will have a lot of sub-projects that will be financed through the coming years.
That sounds very important. Yeah. Yeah, and we will also hear more about test beds when we talk with our guest from the region Borås. But Joel, I know you're especially proud over being a region which is a lot of focus just regarding research and developments, and that over 33.4% of the company's science and education investments in Sweden are happening in your region. Could you tell us a little bit about the way you attract international companies and the way this comes into it?
Yeah, I mean, the latest years have been a very good development. I mean, one of the reasons being, of course, that the automotive industry is going and the mobility industry is going through a lot of changes, and with a very strong footprint in that, of course, we see a very big growth in investments coming from our local companies, but that's also driving investments from other companies. In 2013, Geely put their CEVT, China Euro Vehicle Technology Center here, which is developing future mobility for the whole Geely group. And 2017, they took a decision to also put that into a Geely Innovation Center, which is like their European headquarters for research in Europe. So they have now about 2,000 people working there, but can now also grow and also partner up with a lot of other companies. So of course, attracting with these kind of facilities, with these kind of test beds, is a very important thing for us, but also the customer base that we are having. One other reason is, of course, Mobility X Lab, that is having these 6 companies, Ericsson, Volvo Cars, Volvo Group, ZenAct, Veoneer, and Zeft, who are attracting smart startups that globally startups that have a lot of interesting technologies for these developments, and giving them opportunity to partner up together with these companies. So twice a year there is a way to apply to be one of those companies that are chosen for being in these projects, and then you have 6 months to develop projects with these environments. And hopefully this contributes also for us to companies that are investing here, but also for our bigger companies to find new technologies, and for these startups to find a customer. So it's a very good win-win solution, which is then coordinated by the Lindholmen Science Park with very big interest from these 6 partners. So this is a great opportunity.
Sounds like it. And talking about establishing in Göteborg, we already have the German company Nextbike there. So happy to welcome Philipp von Stauffenberg. And before you tell us a little bit about why you open up in Göteborg, I know you have a business idea of sustainable bike sharing system. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. Hi. So first of all, thanks for the invitation. I'm very glad to be here representing Nextbike. Just like a short introduction, I'm Philipp Stauffenberg. I'm actually the operational manager for our own ops systems from an international point of view. And from that point of view, it's actually quite interesting for you to know who we are. We're actually a pioneer and also European market leader regarding bike sharing and representing our bike sharing systems in around 300 cities right now in 28 countries worldwide. So this is actually more or less our international profile, and our plan is like to establish sustainable mobility via bikes with like a different range of bike types. For instance, we have classic bikes, we have e-bikes, we have cargo bikes. So the range of bike products is quite big, and we're also looking forward to integrating business partners with business bikes, campus bikes, which means to integrate in universities in the cities, and yeah, in general make the mobility more sustainable and giving alternatives to your car and also to public transport, or like combine it with public transport. So this is actually more or less our profile. So yeah.
And talking about the region, Västra Götaland, could you share why you decided to start in the city of Göteborg?
Yeah, actually, I can quote more or less the phrase from the video that there's not only one reason, but several reasons, because Gothenburg is like for us a really interesting market and city in general. And to be specific, it is because of a really, really well-planned bike infrastructure. It's really bike friendly. And as Joel also quoted, and which we also could see in the video, there are lots of companies which we would like to integrate in the system as well. And yeah, which is like from a macro point of view, quite interesting and good for us. It's like adding a new country for us on our portfolio and being present in Sweden as well, because this is actually our first system in Sweden, and we're glad and looking forward to implementing more systems in Sweden in general. Yeah.
Yes, and talking about that, we maybe have a lot of entrepreneurs interesting to maybe start up in Sweden. Could you tell us a little bit about that journey? I know you actually started in a pretty rough time in 2020 during the pandemic. Do you have any advice for other German companies, entrepreneurs?
Yeah, to be honest, in our case, it was really quite special because the plan to start was in general for March 2020, and there were like lots of business and planning trips planned to Sweden in general to implement the system, to plan, for instance, the premises, the people for there in situ, and having like a good connection to the city. And this was quite difficult for us, as you said before, because of the pandemic situation. So for us, it was really good to have Joel on board and having him as a contact person in the beginning, before the pandemic situation, to start like the first planning steps and looking for contact persons regarding the best suited premises where we could integrate our warehouse and our call center. And also the access to the labor market was quite difficult for us without being there present. So it was always good to have Joel as a contact person and understanding the market situation there and what kind of accesses could be there, what kind of strength the region has, what kind of weakness we should face, and so on. So this was actually more or less our the best way for us to be present there without having like a real next bike hired person in the beginning there. So for these steps, Joel was quite helpful. So I can only recommend to contact Business Region if you would like to start a business there as well.
Okay, so then I have to go back to you, Joel. What would you, it sounds like you have supported and helped out a lot. Can you tell the listeners what is your role and how can you support?
Yes, of course. We are a neutral part owned by the city of Gothenburg. So we help companies with different services when it comes to establishing in the Gothenburg region. We can help from the beginning with calculating and assisting the building of the case, and we can give you industrial knowledge, the networks, but also in the phase of establishing how to find people to help you with the company formation, how to find your office or land, but also the expat side of it. We actually launched now, we have a web page called Move to Gothenburg, and we have also now launched an international house finally, which also gives the opportunity to give support to the people who are coming, the competence, which is also very important and attractive. So we give this, and it's free of charge, and we help companies to establish and invest. And as Philip said, Nextbike was one of our cases. We work with about 20-25 cases a year. That is our target for establishing here and helping the companies that are moving into it.
Thank you, Joel. Really good to know. And Philip, you're already in 300 cities around the world. What is the next step on micro or macro level?
Yeah, this is actually a good question, especially regarding Gothenburg or like Sweden in general. The thing is that we launched a quite big system here with 1,750 bikes on the street and around 150 stations we have there, because it's like a station-based system there, which also means for us that there are always things we should improve in the beginning, because to be honest, we are still in the beginning, because it was like a different situation for us due to the pandemic situation. Not so many people are using the bikes right now, going from A to B, for instance, to the workplace, because lots of people are still using the home office possibilities. So I would say the first plans on a micro level is to establish the system, to contact more business related partners here, to involve their employees, to give them possibilities to use our annual memberships or monthly memberships, to offer like better possibilities to go to the workplace again, to reintegrate the office life maybe. And for instance, also getting the university involved for having a well or like a good mobility for the Gothenburg students as well. These are the plans on the micro level, more or less. And I would say next step would be to think about the region around Gothenburg, like implementing systems close to Gothenburg to make this part of the country more attractive regarding bike sharing solutions. And then time will also tell us if there are like interesting tenders from other big cities in Sweden where we will try to apply and hopefully win it, as we did in Gothenburg.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing, and who knows, we maybe see you in Borås next time, and that's where we are heading right now. And before I invite my guest, I want you to see another short movie so you can see how linked it all is to each other in Västra Götaland in regarding these business sectors. I'm very happy to welcome Jonas Widerström, today representing Business Region Borås. And we saw in the movie a little bit regarding logistics, but it was a little bit of the going together here. And I know logistics is a really important sector for your region. Could you tell us why?
Yes, for sure. And first, thank you, Monica, and thank you for the embassy for the opportunity to talk about the region of Borås. Borås is the e-trade city in Sweden. E-trade combines trading, marketing, design, and logistics. Logistics is also one cornerstone for investors that want to see active infrastructure abilities as terminal, knowledge, and development. The region of Borås is definitely already a leading logistic node. The region has been selected as Sweden's leading logistics region for several years now, together with Gothenburg. Our leading logistic position is based on the fact that we are located near to the port of Gothenburg, but also that our e-trade companies have taken the opportunity to make that thing extremely efficient. Already established transport companies have been able to build necessary effective and time-efficient distributions from Borås. This facilitates fast and stable logistic distributions and mobility. Through nearby ports, airports, motorways, and rail links, goods and people are transported quickly to Scandinavia's largest cities, the Baltics, Russia, and most of the countries in Europe. And just to mention some of our many companies in the region, we have like DHL, Schenker, DSV, Itella, and Aditro Logistics. And I also must say that our leading position is also based on the fact that the region of Borås has a long history from textile and mail order. Here, the textile industry has developed over traditional mail order through leading e-commerce and has now become Scandinavia's leading textile center with some of the largest textile companies in the Nordic region. And one other thing which is quite interesting is that there is over than 40% of the e-commerce transactions in Sweden that can be traced through companies in the Borås region. And this has given us a very special position, business opportunities, knowledge, and expertise compared to other cities when it comes to e-commerce, logistic, and distributions.
Oh, over 40%. Yeah, sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, it's not a problem. It's fantastic. It's 40%. I also would like to say that all entrepreneurs in this region belong to a network, and the network is covering in different sectors. Or they are active in places where collaborations, entrepreneurships, and innovations take the center stage. And just to mention, within e-trade and logistics, we have e-handelsstaden Borås with more than 160 members.
Yes, and you also talked a little bit about different development programs that you have, like Borås Connect. Could you share?
Yeah, for sure. That's quite interesting. So what makes the Borås region really unique? I must say it's our tradition of strong collaborations. I would say that this makes us very special. The region is responsible of a proactive and strategic development program called Borås Connected. And the program is aimed to create transport and environmental efficient transport solutions. We know how companies' logistic function are becoming increasingly crucial, especially for the profits. And this development program is aimed to strengthen the company's positions. Therefore, we work proactively to create the best transport system and the new infrastructure solutions for them. And we have this special project, one project. It's called Autofreight. And that's about extra long truck, HCT. And the HCT means high capacity transport. They can transport 2 to 3 times as much goods. And together with the local businesses, we have created a unique multi-client traffic system that builds on a horizontal collaborations between the companies. And as a result, we reduce the number of trucks on the roads, and we reduce carbon emissions with more than 34%. We also developed the latest technique for safe transports, and we maximize energy efficiency in close collaborations with transport manufacturers like Volvo, and also together with the University of Chalmers. So you could say that the Road 40 has become a testbed for high capacity transport. And this is one success story. And of course, we have several more projects similar like this. For example, city logistic, autonomous transport, and electrifications.
And talking about test beds, and if you see this as one of the test facilities projects, you of course have to tell us about AstaZero as well.
Yeah, AstaZero, it's fantastic. It's the world's first full-scale test environment for development of the future road safety system. And it can be found just outside Borås. The AstaZero is open international platform for all interested parties. Here, they offer the unique environment for testing all possible scenarios in the research, in the development, and certification of future road safety systems. And recently, AstaZero opened the world's longest indoor track for testing activity safety systems. And this is open for vehicle operators 24 hours a day, 365 days per year. And very much of this development of future transport and logistics takes place in our region. In the Borås region, there are several test beds. And besides AstaZero, we have like Avitar, SEEL, Autoliv, and so on. And this, together with this, and together with the region of Gothenburg, we formed a really powerful hub that benefits the future automotive industry.
So to wrap it up, I know you give a really good approach to why Borås is an interesting region, but is it something else you want to highlight? What help can they get and what kind of support if a German company is interested to collaborate with you?
Well, of course we can. Those who want to see active infrastructure abilities, extraordinary networks to support new businesses, we have the knowledge, we have the leading research, and the development, if they are in some kind of that decisions, they should absolutely take a call to the region of Borås. We support them. We have really good service. We are fast, we are quick, and we have some vacant plots already prepared. And not only here in Borås, we also have our neighbors like Herrljunga, Vårgårda, Mark, Svenninga, Tranemo, Ulricehamn, and Bollebygd. So to combine to that, we are extremely foot-speeded.
The end, really foot-speeded then in Borås. Thank you so much. And before we continue the program, I also want to highlight that we organize a German-Swedish Business Day every year together with Business Sweden and the Swedish Chamber of Commerce. This year it will be in Hamburg, 18th of November, so mark your calendars already now. And we will bring together German and Swedish companies. During the evening, we have a big prize award gala dinner, so you can already now apply for the prize awards. And this year we also have a new prize. It's a German investment prize. It is a way for us to to a German company that made a significant contribution to the Swedish ecosystem. So please read more on the Swedish Chamber of Commerce homepage. And talking about doing business in Sweden, I'm happy to welcome Anna Lidberg, Country Manager at Business Sweden here in Göteborg, I was about to say, but I mean here in Germany, of course. And now we have focused a lot on Västra Götaland, and I would like to zoom out a little bit. Could you please give us a little bit of a presentation of the Swedish offer in general?
Absolutely, Monica. Hello, good day, everybody. So I think that I even have some slides then to share with you. So I think we can go to the next slide right away. And we have now heard from our colleagues in the Gothenburg and the Borås area with many great examples of the innovation power and the urge for climate change in Sweden. So I'll just, as Monica, as you suggested, I'll just zoom out and see what is all this drive coming from. And we would like to kind of sum up the overall strength and the overall uniqueness of Sweden in these 3 bullets. Firstly, pioneering science and technology. We have in Sweden something that we call the Swedish model, or we can call it triple helix sometimes, how we really see how actors from different fields, from industry, from the public side, from universities, large companies together with startups are collaborating to create innovation. And we already heard about several excellent test beds in the west region of Sweden, but you could in a way say that the whole of Sweden, it's a huge country geographical wise, but we are not so many people. But Sweden in itself is basically a country-sized test bed. Then I would like to highlight the productivity and maybe especially key resources in Sweden. Overall, Sweden tops very high when it comes to productivity rankings, and of course always looking for the next possibility of automation and developing that further. Of course, at the moment looking on how AI can be brought in. But we see, especially right now, that we have a lot of investments into Sweden due to our energy mix and our very high share of 100% climate neutral energy. Sweden, as I said, it's not the largest country. We are always thinking that we are kind of 1/10 of Germany. It's a good number to keep in mind, 1 to 10 to Germany, Sweden. It applies to most, such as BNP and our population, etc. But Sweden is a large market in the Nordics. We would even like to say that it's the key market. And we have large urbanized areas. Stockholm is among the fastest growing regions in Sweden, and you can say the same around Gothenburg and West Sweden, as we are now talking about, as well as the south around Malmö and Copenhagen. And to highlight further here is that Swedes are really early adopters. So if you want to test a new kind of technology, Sweden is the place to go. So if we turn to the next slide, this is not only me saying all this, but there are a number of different indexes when it comes to both looking at innovation, on digital adoption, and sustainability that is actually showing Sweden's position in all these fields. And then we just turn to the next slide. So today we have the focus on the west of Sweden and mobility and transport and logistics. But as you know, all of kind of different industrial segments are more and more getting closer to each other. We call it immersive technology. So we see also from a mobility and transport point of view, it's very important to have a full, strong ecosystem. And that we definitely can present from a Swedish point of view through all kinds of industrial segments, matching Germany very well, of course. And you see also with a number of leading companies in all these different fields. Lots of companies that are household names, both from an industrial and consumer. So Monica, that was a trial to do a zoom out.
Great zoom out, and I like the image of testbed Sweden, that the whole country is like a big testbed and that we are early adopters. That's great images for our German viewers to think of us as Swedes. And let us zoom in then again on Västra Götaland and especially the sectors we are talking about, the business sector, mobility and automotive.
Yes, and then I even have a slide for that as well. And of course, it's really a reason that today, when we have the theme of mobility, logistics, and transport, that we have that together with the west regions of Sweden, because that is such a stronghold, even definitely on a European basis. But again, everything is an ecosystem, and of course, what we are talking about today is really how we can make the ecosystem Sweden-Germany even stronger. So for mobility, what is really great is that we have a combination of, let's say, the traditional mobility business. If we can keep the slide exactly, combination of strong OBM, globally leading OEMs. We have the body and chassis. We have technology consultants, etc., etc. But we also have all these new clusters of technology. I would definitely like to lift the whole value chain about battery, which is starting in the north. A lot is evolving around Northvolt, but we also see a very high interest from both European and Asian actors investing further in Sweden in the battery value chain. We have extremely strong AI clusters, 30 AI labs, if we count it all in all. Sweden is coming, from a very much, we are a true telecom country, and very much ahead in implementing 5G and seeing how we can apply that to mobility as well. And that has, of course, then also strong links to different kind of safety applications, and we have strong companies representing that. And again, the word of test beds come up all the time when you speak about Sweden. But I would just like overall maybe to highlight is how the mobility industry is going more and more immersive, and then all these different kinds of technology areas are really key. One that I see is not here on the slide, but definitely worth to mention is Sweden's position in gaming, of course, and how that can be in different ways. Games, how that can be in different ways applied towards mobility.
Thank you. And talking about Germany and Sweden, could you mention a couple of key investments from German companies?
Definitely. And I think the best way to illustrate that is to look at the next slide, which is trying to show the triple helix model of Sweden, just like I already mentioned, the combinations of industry working strongly together with the public side and research institutes of different kinds. So I would say some key, there are many interesting investments to talk about, but some key investments lately is of course the Volkswagen Group owned Scania and investment of 95 million in a battery assembly factory, and with that also additional 50 million euro investment in a adjacent research center. This assembly line will be fully up and running by 2023, and by then also generating 200 direct jobs, of course, indirect jobs. If we move a bit further north, but still with the Volkswagen Group, I think you're all aware about the great partnership between Volkswagen and Northvolt in around the 40 gigawatt hours cell production factory in the north of Sweden, where Volkswagen is moving in with 14 billion USD. If we then stay in the region of West Sweden, we have to mention recently announced collaboration between the Daimler Trucks and the Volvo groups in hydrogen-based fuel cells, and the joint venture that they are setting up called Cellcentric. And this collaboration will of course also generate investments in Germany and Sweden. So I think that's some top of mind investments, Monica, that I think many companies can be both inspired by, but also looking at how you can actually become part of this ecosystem around these large OEMs.
Thank you, Anna. So if you want to be part of this, please don't hesitate to reach out, and we will also share this afterwards on our LinkedIn accounts, so you get all the home pages and all the different projects we have been talking about. And also I want to highlight that you can still write your question. You have a couple more minutes before we will start with the Q&A session. So don't forget to write your question in the chat room, and we will ask the participants in a couple of minutes. And now we are happy to have another friend at the Team Sweden family, Ninni Löfgren-Tischer, Head of Market Service at the German-Swedish Chamber of Commerce. Now we have talked a lot about Västra Götaland, and we talked about key investments, but I think it's another area that's super important, and that is of course the business climate. How would you describe the business climate for our German viewers?
Yeah, thank you, Monica, and thank you for having us. It's really good to highlight these crucial questions, of course, on how to get started in Sweden, because we have seen that there's really a good offer through all these presentations here today. So, of course, every company faces a very individual situation concerning its background and also possibilities and goals for future steps. We can see that in our daily work assisting German companies entering the Swedish market. But overall, I think it's always very important to start by reflecting on yourself, on your own company, on your identity, your ambitions, preconditions, as I said, but also unique selling points. And based on these findings, to find the right match, finding the business opportunities. We have seen all this smorgasbord here today from all the presenters before, so that you can pick out your target market, but also the relevant target groups and the concrete business partners, the customers. I think you have to narrow it down and still think in the good old salami tactic, as we say in Germany, because in the end, of course, business is done by individuals together and anchored in the respective region and local context. And concerning the definition of market, we are focused on the Swedish one, and I think that is really important to highlight, because we can sometimes see that from a German perspective, it's sometimes easy to merge the whole Nordic region as one similar market, maybe to get the critical mass. And Of course, it's true, we are few up here. We have heard that, Anna, you told us. But still, we are very different countries in the Nordic. And I think you should be very careful and look into them as different entities with different entry strategies. And with that said, of course, there's synergies, and Sweden is often used as a hub for the whole Nordic region. And don't forget, in selected business areas, of course, we are the absolute right match. You've heard that today. One country and one region is perfectly enough. So when you look closer into the clusters and players on spot, you will find a fantastic ecosystem with great potential and more than sufficient basis for successful business. And I think the presentations from Västra Götaland and Joel and Jonas visualized it again in a brilliant way. So the right partners and ecosystems that forms the region for you. And of course, it's always important to have a thorough planning in advance. Getting informed about the business preconditions, finding the right support is crucial. We heard that, and we can see that there are actors like you, Joel and Jonas, ready to help, because you have to see the new market from the inside perspective, in our case with Swedish eyes. So working with networks and local players is extremely important in such a small country as Sweden is. A lot is decided at the coffee machine, and you have to be present at business events to be part of the talk. The fact that you join us today in this webinar shows, of course, that you're aware of that. So please use the context that you get today and continue the dialogue with all of us, because we love to assist you. And having said this, it also means to be aware of the differences, how we do business. It might sound as something of minor importance, but getting to know the Swedish mindset, not just to adapt to it, but using it smartly when you start up a German-Swedish cooperation on spot here in Sweden. It can accelerate your market entry, and it can also make it more sustainable, long-lasting, because of course it's always important to have a balanced bilateral way in doing business. I guess we will come back to that in a minute, Monica. And back to the harder facts, there might also be legal and tax regulations that you should reflect on. Even though administrative work is quite straightforward in Sweden, and even though we are part of the EU, there are still national processes that differ, and that is true concerning certifications, for example, as well, not at least within the area of mobility that we have been looking into today. And don't forget that we have another currency as well in Sweden. So that is also, of course, to be aware of that is also important. And last but not least, be present and be patient. It takes time to get started on a new market, and you should be part of the region, of the network and the social structure. You have to show that you have a sincere interest and that you want to start building a long-lasting relationship and be part of the players that we have seen today in these fantastic ecosystems. So Monica, maybe trying to summarize this and the most important success factors when entering the Swedish market in a few points. Be prepared, start with reflecting on your own business and preconditions, and think niche, not too big. Set clear goals and define target groups to approach. Go where your customers are and team up with clusters. That gives you also a preferred region to process. And we have seen that today with the West Sweden region. Partner up with local network and get your strategy secured by Swedish eyes. Notice legal and tax issues, and don't forget the currency. Be conscious of the differences in business cultures, and of course, be present, localize, and be patient.
Thank you. And as you said, it's good to be prepared for the Swedish market, and that all of the organization that have been part of this today can help, of course, with some of that. But could you also mention just a couple of differences between the business culture between Sweden and Germany?
Yeah, Monica, you know that I love to talk about that, and it could fill an own webinar, of course, because we are different. And I think the most important issue is, of course, to be aware of that, and that there might be more differences or bigger differences than we might think of because of our tight trade relations. So to be sensible to them without evaluating them, just to have like really good antennas. I guess you need that, especially in Sweden, since a lot of our business culture is like a bit vague and indirect. And then also think of making active decisions and use the differences in something good, connecting our respective strengths that gives you a head start, I guess, when entering the market. And core of all this, just to mention one of it, is of course communication. And here it's really important for us to mention that the Swedish way of communicating is much softer, more indirect, more humble. We use a lot of conjunctive form, and wir reden durch die Blume. It's not always as clear maybe and direct as in Germany. That should not be misinterpreted as insecurity or insufficient knowledge. It's just another way of putting it. So maybe being part of a country with only 10 million inhabitants and geographically a bit remote from Central Europe, as a Swede, we have learned that we are all equally important to get this country running. You might say as one gear wheel in all these systems. So everyone has to work together to get the country running. And also maybe the overall organizational structure, that they are more flat and less hierarchical. I think you all know that already. But it does not mean that we don't have a clear allocation of responsibilities or function. It's just not as visible as maybe in the German Organigramme. That is also a reason why it is so important to be present and be part of the local networks that we focus on today, to get an understanding on how work is done and by whom maybe decisions are made. So this is just a few examples, but please bear in mind that they have a direct input on other areas such as decision making, conflict handling, trust building, meeting structure, or also project leadership.
And don't forget to look up the word fika before you move to Sweden. And Nini, how about the language? Is it a barrier there? Do German companies need to know Swedish to be able to invest in Sweden or start with a project there?
Yeah, I don't think it's a must-have. Of course, it's always good to have a bit of an understanding of the other language. It's always an icebreaker, of course, and it helps doing business together. But I guess, again, awareness is the magic recipe for a successful collaboration. And also to think of that English might not be the neutral language as you think of, because even though we all have English nowadays as the main language in many businesses, it's not the same language. We put like our own attribute and images in our English words as Germans or Swedes. So we use the same words, but we mean different things. So it's not a neutral language. And I guess these awareness and just reminding yourself on this every once in a while, that could help, of course, your day-to-day communication to be aware of maybe possible misunderstandings.
Stort tack Ninni för jättebra punkter, det var väldigt bra inspel. And if you want to understand what I said, I can still give you an advice that here in Germany it's plenty of places that you can take Swedish language classes for free, even though that you might not need it at all to do business in Sweden. But it can be good to know, as Ninni said. And for example, you have Internationella skolorna in Düsseldorf. They have free Swedish classes, and I know Business Sweden and the chambers also have different projects with business language classes, so check out their LinkedIn accounts. And actually a lot of universities here in Germany also offers business Swedish language classes. I know, for example, Technical University in Munich do that, and also here in Berlin you can check out Humboldt University that also have Swedish language classes. So thank you so much, Ninni, and now it's time to see if I got any questions from you all. I hope I did, yes. Let's check in the chat room, and it's not too late to ask questions, just write in the chat. Okay, the first question is to you, Philip, from Nextbike. Compared to many of the other cities where you are located, Göteborg has a cold climate. How well are your cycles used in the winter time in Göteborg?
That's actually a good question, because especially our technique way of having them like as an intelligent bike is sometimes a little difficulty for us, because when it's really cold, for instance, our bike computers or our locks could face some difficulties, but in general we we are happy that we have some measures to solve that issue, and which is also quite helpful for us regarding the Gothenburg conditions is that together with the city council, we decided to have like a low and a high season. So during November until April, we have only 30% of our fleet on the streets. And within the start of April of every year, the high season normally begins, and we have like the full fleet available for every customer. So yeah, we are more or less prepared to it, but I have to admit that climate is always like an issue which we have to face regarding the technical circumstances.
Thank you. Another question for Joel. Volvo Cars was acquired by Geely some 10 years ago. What has this meant in terms of employment within the mobility sector in Göteborg since then?
Yeah, good question. I think the situation that Volvo Cars was in before the Geely buyout was not really perfect. So what has happened is a very big development. I mentioned before the Innovation Center, Geely Innovation Center, the CEVT establishment has meant a lot of development and a lot of new jobs created. But also Volvo Cars has actually grown a lot since 2010, and is now up at the 15,000, 16,000 people actually. So it has been a very positive way of being the major player in a group like Geely.
And here is a question to Jonas from Borås. Talking about AstaZero, could you say if there are German companies testing there? Are you allowed to talk about that?
Well, I must say it's a bit difficult for me to talk about who actually is on the site, but we know that there is German companies on the site and do some tests. Yes.
So the answer is yes.
Yeah.
But we don't talk about who. Okay, and Anna from Business Sweden, talking about test beds, why are Sweden early adopters?
Yes, that's a very interesting question, of course, and I think it goes back to, let's say, many of the cultural aspects that Ninni has mentioned here as well. But I think it's, the basis is that we are, from very early on, we realized that we are a country up in the north, separated by water from Europe. So we have to kind of go out in the world, and we have to, make something good to bring with us. And of course, we have to somehow test it at home before we go. And maybe also because we were a bit on our own half island, that we worked out systems jointly, and we can see that in, let's say, that's how Swedish strength in power sector, how Swedish strength in telecom, Swedish strength in safety for automotive, and there are many good examples of that, how public companies, private companies have and university has worked together, and has really created innovations that are still world leading. So I think that kind of all in all hang together.
And then the last question goes to you, Ninni. It says, today Västra Götaland has been pointed out as a logistic hub. Are there also other regions in Sweden that you want to highlight regarding logistics?
I think there are different regions, of course, that have this kind of possibilities. I mean, we're a big country, and you have maybe to have different logistics sites to complement each other. But still, we can see that in Västra Götaland there might be the core or the best part to have like a hub for the whole country or for the whole region. but still there are different sites. And I know the area in areas in Småland and in Nässjö and so on that are really good at logistics sites, for example. But I guess you have to see them in complementing each other, and you still need, if you start doing business in Sweden, you need somewhere where you dock in the beginning and where you can grow from. And I think Västra Götaland is a fantastic place to start with that, because you have so much more than just a good location. You have all these competence, this ecosystem where we have seen this kind of collaboration within the triple helix as well, and you have fantastic support as well. So I guess that is a two-side answer. So a yes and a no.
Okay, and that will wrap this session up. An hour goes very quickly. And if you missed the other two programs that we did, please check out our LinkedIn and you can find them there. And we will now take a little bit of a summer break, and we will be back this fall with this series, Investment in Sweden. And you will also get contact information to all the participants today, and a big thank you to you all. And don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have an idea or something you want to have a dialogue about. And don't hesitate to reach out to me or my great colleagues at the Embassy of Sweden as well. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope that you will have a great summer, and we see each other the upcoming fall. Hej då!